Hello everybody, I'm Dale MacKay and welcome to the People Around the World 4th Annual Conference. Thanks so much for having me and letting me be part of it. So I'm going to be cooking one of my favorite recipes. This is more of a spring recipe. I know we're in the middle of winter, but let's think about warmer times. So one thing that people always love when they come to the restaurant is gnocchi. Most people know potato gnocchi. That seems to be the most popular, but today we are going to be doing more of a cheese gnocchi. So we're going to be using ricotta cheese, Parmesan cheese, egg yolks, and flour. That's how simple it is, and that's why I really wanted to teach you this recipe, because it is one of our secret recipes. We have it on all of our menus throughout the year. It's very interchangeable when it comes to, you can use it with mushrooms, you can use it with tomatoes, you can really roast it or just boil it. So very diverse, but at the same time, it's extremely easy, as you're gonna see right now. So we're gonna get right into it. I have my flour. This is wonderful Saskatchewan flour that we get from a miller just outside of Regina. So local flour. We have our Parmesan cheese, which has been grated fine. And then we have a ricotta cheese. This is, we get milk, local milk, and then we actually make our own ricotta, but you can just buy ricotta obviously in any real store around. So we have that. We have our cheese. I'm just going to slightly kind of mix that up just a little bit. That. Gnocchi is one of those things, it's not going to be exactly every single time, because sometimes the cheese is going to have a bit more moisture in it. Sometimes the yolks might be a little bit bigger. So it's one of those things, just like any kind of pasta and stuff like that, you need to have a bit of a feel for it, which is just a matter of just practicing and trying the recipe and having the confidence to keep trying it, even if it doesn't go perfectly the first time. So we have our yolks there. I'm just kind of continue to mix this up. I have my dough scraper here. That, I'm gonna kind of cut it in. That. You can use a bowl. I like to just put it straight on the counter myself. I'm not going to add any salt. Obviously, salt is one of the most important ingredients in cooking, just because it brings out obviously the natural flavors, and it makes seasoning is just really important. But because of the fact that we're putting quite a bit of Parmesan in here, and Parmesan is known for having a good amount of salt and a good salt content and flavor, we don't really need to. So now I'm going to kind of squish it all in there. As you can see, I'm not really batting it around too much. I'm just kind of getting it incorporated, and I can feel already that it's maybe a little bit wet, and that's why I have a little bit extra flour. So we can get some more on our bench. That way it's going to be a little bit easier to work with too. You don't want to add too much flour and then dry it out though at the same time. Like that. You want to get out some of those cracks and air pockets. Like that. And kind of scrape your bench up, like that. Make sure I get some boil. All right. Okay, so now I've got my dough. I'm just going to cut it into probably 3. And really, this is more up to you and kind of what shape and size you like to do. You don't really want to go too big, because then they're going to get a bit waterlogged and there's a more chance of them cracking. So I like to go kind of about a medium size. Traditionally you can get a gnocchi board where it has little grooves in it where you can kind of push it off and you get those nice little grooves. I find that potato gnocchi works better for using those. So right now we're just going to do kind of a basic kind of log roll. Like that. And as you can kind of see, there's not too many you don't want too many cracks or air pockets in there. Like that. And I'm just going to keep kind of doing it like this. The thing I like about this recipe is the fact that all these ingredients you can get any time of year, no problem. Potato gnocchi is usually the most popular, and you see it the most. But the one thing about potato gnocchi, it really does change all through the year, because as potatoes grow, certain times of year, cold storage and stuff like that, the sugar content, the water content, all that changes throughout the year. And obviously Saskatchewan has obviously the best potatoes around. So we do potato gnocchi a lot, but we want to do it certain times of year when the potatoes are kind of at their peak for using them for gnocchi. All right, so we've got our 3 rolls here, like that. You want to try to make sure you have uniform shape or size at least, just obviously for the cooking, so they're nice and even. Make sure your water's nicely boiling, which it should be in a second here. All right, we're going to take this tray. So, one thing I like to do with pasta and with gnocchi, so you take a tray, whether it be a sheet tray, plastic tray, and you have it upside down, and then you're just going to flour the top like this. And then we're going to go to cut our gnocchi. So you want to basically take a knife. This is kind of my gnocchi knife, so it's a serrated knife that's lost all of its edge. It's not very sharp, but it's sharp enough where I can just tap through. I go like that, and I kind of almost bounce it off. That way it's not going to stick to the knife, and I can also take a little bit of flour and rub it in there like that. So we have our little pillows. There we go. Again, just a little bit of flour. So you can even leave them like that, or you can sometimes take them like this and give them a little squeeze so they have the little indents. It really just depends on what you like. So the reason why I put a little bit of flour down there is just obviously so it doesn't stick to the tray, because we need to get them in the water. And the least amount you touch them, the better, because obviously they're going to lose their shape the more that we touch them and manipulate them. All right. So we've got our gnocchi there. Simple, easy, 4 ingredients. We have our nice boiling water here, as you can see. So here's the kind of trick, the reason why we have a tray and we've done it upside down. So now we don't have a lip to deal with. So I can basically take a scraper, I can take whatever, and I can just push it right into the water. Turn my tray. Boom, like that. Then I'm gonna take a spatula, I'm just gonna give it a little stir. Just like a pierogi or a dumpling or anything else, basically, once they come to the top, you want to let them cook for another additional 30 seconds, and that's when you're going to kind of know that they are cooked. I'm going to put a lid back on because I want that temperature to come back up to a boil so they don't just sit there and sink to the bottom. Okay, now that we have cooked it it's been cooking for about 2 minutes. As you can kind of see, they're all floated to the top, and I've let them cook for an additional minute. So I'm just going to scoop them out like that. Carefully put them on a tray. Go. As you can kind of see, some nice little pillow shapes here. They're nice and hot. They're cooked, and then we're just going to hit them with a little bit of oil, olive oil, veg oil, whatever oil you like. That way, they're not going to stick together, and they're going to stay nice and smooth. So I'm just going to let those kind of cool off to the side for now, and we are going to start on our sauce. So, all right. So we have cherry tomatoes. All they are. The nice thing about this sauce too is you can use whatever tomatoes you really want. I'm using cherry tomatoes because we had some cherry tomatoes that were slightly a bit older. Also, they have quite a condensed flavor. You wouldn't want to use, you can use a watery tomato because we're going to be reducing it down. So realistically, if you have overripe tomatoes or tomatoes that you don't really want to use anymore for eating them kind of fresh, that this is perfect for. So I'm going to put our tomatoes, cherry tomatoes in there, and then I've got a red pepper. The red pepper is going to help with a little bit of color and a little bit of flavor. So, like that. I'll show you how I like to do my peppers. So I topped and tailed while we're at it, and then I cut one slice down there. Then you can kind of open it up almost kind of like a book. So I'm going to slide my knife underneath, slide my knife underneath, slide underneath, and put the core off to the side. So if we're going to actually go to do some dice or something like that, now you've got 2 nice planks, so you can cut them really any shape you want, and they're going to sit nice and flat. But we're just going to put them in the sauce, so we don't have to. All right, so we've got our peppers in there, we've got our tomatoes. I'm gonna put a little dash of water, like that. And put our lid on. All right, so we've just liquefied it, and we are going to pass it through what we call a chinois, or any type of strainer that you have. And the reason why we're doing that is, as you can kind of see, it's all really liquefied. But we're going to put it through here so we can kind of get any extra seeds and stuff that was in there. So I'm going to take a chinois and a little ladle. That way it helps me kind of push it through. And you can kind of see it's a really nice liquid. There we go. So what we're going to do is we're going to essentially reduce this down. And so we're making a reduction is what we call it in the kitchen. So we're going to be reducing it down slow, and then that way all the extra water inside the tomatoes, inside the peppers is going to go away, and we're going to end up with essentially like a strong essence. And so what we're gonna make with this is a tomato butter sauce. So classically, a butter sauce or a beurre blanc in French cooking is a reduction of vinegar and wine and spices, and you reduce that down till it's quite thick, or it has a different viscosity and it's quite pungent. Then you monte, or to whip butter inside of it. So that's exactly what we're gonna be doing with this. But instead of using vinegar, we're using tomatoes. So we're gonna use the acidity from the tomatoes, and then the pepper is gonna give a little bit back flavor and also some color. So you can kind of see it's quite a lovely looking color right now, but that's just going to intensify as we kind of bring it down. So I'm going to get this onto the stove. Here we go. So let that reduce down, like that. And then in the meantime, this isn't on the recipe, but we're going to do some semi-dried tomatoes. I love these because they're so useful in so many different things. You can put them in salads, you can put them with fish, you can put them with meat. It's just a really, really nice way to use up some tomatoes too. Say if you have too many extra cherry tomatoes kicking around, these things will last for weeks and months, especially in the fridge, because essentially you're just doing a dried tomato. So I'm gonna take these cherry tomatoes, cut them in half, like that. I like to cut them down the seam. That way you've got a little bit long ones. So put them in a bowl, and then we have a little bit of sugar, not too much, just a little dash. And then some salt, maybe a tiny bit more salt than you would think, because what we're doing is we're essentially drying out the tomato, and we're making sun-dried tomatoes without the sun. So we have, it's tossed now in salt and a little bit of sugar, and the reason why I put it into a bowl is because you want the salt to get on the skin and on the inside. So we are gonna just put those down on a tray. So you can see our sauce over here is starting to kind of bubble up, and it's starting to split out. So you can see the solid bits, and then you can see the water. So the water is evaporating away, so that sauce is just getting more and more intensified. Okay, so we got our tomatoes there like that. Then put a couple little things of thyme in the sauce there, and a sprig of basil, and that way that's going to slightly infuse. And then, so the thyme, we're just going to take one of my favorite herbs to smell. Actually, one of my favorite smells in the world is probably thyme, especially when it's roasting. So we're just going to pick off these little leaves, and then I'm going to kind of place about 1 or 2 leaves on each one. It seems like it's painstaking, but it's worth it in the end, because as these dry, the tomatoes will get sweeter and a little bit saltier, and then the thyme is going to dry on there, and it's just going to cure in there. It's going to taste really, really delicious. It's amazing how much flavor these things can have. So we put a little leaf on there on each one. Then I've got a piece of garlic. You could use a mandolin or a nice sharp knife. You just want to make really, really thin things, or you could use minced garlic as well. In the restaurant, I like these little slices, so I can just put one little slice on each one, like that, like that. And again, I'll make a whole tray of these, and then I'll let them sit out. So These have just sat in a warm place overnight. So I didn't even put them in the oven. I've just left them above the stove in a warm spot, and they basically just do their own work. I will take these ones maybe a little bit further, but realistically, you can just put that in your fridge in a little deli container and you can use them for weeks and weeks. So I encourage you to make some of these and put them in your fridge, and you can throw them into a pasta, throw them into whatever, and they're a lot better than buying them, and it's a good way to use up tomatoes. So, as you can see what's going on over here, it's boiling up quite a bit. Don't worry about that, that's exactly what you want. You can see the kind of color differential from the red and the white. The white is the water and it's reducing away. I will say again, Saskatchewan has by far the best, I know I said that about potatoes already, but tomatoes, Saskatchewan beats everywhere in the world. I've worked in lots and lots of countries around the world, and Saskatchewan tomatoes smell and taste different. So we buy as many tomatoes in the summertime we can. We jar them, we do everything we can. So just a big shout out to Saskatchewan tomatoes and Saskatchewan farmers and growers. Okay, so this is going on. We've got our tomatoes there. I'm going to show you another quick little trick. So I'm actually going to need my blender again. Pull this over for a sec. Okay, so another quick trick. We get a lot of herbs. We have some people that grow herbs for us. Sometimes they bring us too many herbs to go through as much. So before they totally turn or anything else, you can put stem in there as well and straight leaves. You don't have to worry. Put that straight into a blender. Then you want to use a very neutral oil. I'm using Saskatchewan canola oil. We use only canola oil, and then we also use cold pressed canola oil. That's another Saskatchewan great product. So biggest thing is with this is you don't want to get greedy. You don't want to try to get too much basil oil out of this. So essentially what we're going to do is make a flavored oil. So I've just put enough oil in there so we can get it kind of twisting and going. Okay, there we go. So as you can see, I've just basically blitzed it just enough to get it going, and you'll have the kind of a muddy kind of green color there, but as soon as we activate it or we get it on the stove and start cooking it out a little bit, it's going to start going nice and bright green. We're going to pour it through a cloth, and then that way we can strain it off. There we go. Okay, so in the meantime, so we have our sauce reducing down, we have our basil oil partially finished here, and then we're just going to quickly go into the garnish. Another thing that a lot of people don't know about Saskatchewan, that I honestly didn't know about Saskatchewan until I became an adult chef and moved back here after being away for a while, is all the amazing asparagus that we produce here in Saskatoon or in Saskatchewan. This unfortunately isn't local because of obviously right now the time of year, but imagine this being wonderful local asparagus. People screw up asparagus all the time. Generally, whenever you have asparagus at someone's home, it's most likely overcooked. I can safely say that. My mom's been cooking asparagus for years and she still overcooks it, and I explain to her all the time how to do it, but I think it's people just think for whatever reason it takes a long time to cook when it really doesn't. So I'm not even going to blanch this. We're not going to do anything. You're going to see once we're going to actually go finish the dish that I'm going to throw this in there. It's really only going to cook for about 30 seconds to a minute. I'm going to cut them in half just because I think it's going to look nicer and it's going to flow better in the dish, but you could leave them whole as well. So you have that. Let's check in on our sauce here. So we got our basil oil. As you can kind of see, it's kind of cooked up and it's kind of separated a little bit from the oil. And all I've got here is a coffee filter. And we're going to pour that in there. So that's just going to kind of do its thing and reduce down. And we got our sauce. Getting really close. So I'm going to pull out those herbs and let this finish reducing down. It's getting very close. Okay, so we got those. We have our asparagus garnish ready here. We have some black olives, which I'm just going to push, get the pit out. Like that. I love black olives, especially with this tomato sauce. It's fantastic. What I always tell people, if you like Campbell's soup, this is like the best tomato Campbell soup you're ever gonna have, because it's basically just tomato essence full of butter. And I find it really does kind of taste like a really, really expensive version of Campbell's soup. Okay, so you can see it's getting thicker and thicker. All right, now we are ready. So as you can see, it's gone from all that liquid to basically kind of that thickened sauce there. That's exactly what we want. Now I'm turning this way, way, way down, because we're about to make a butter sauce or a beurre blanc. And so basically, once we take it to this point, we start adding the butter, we can't boil it again because it will split. And so basically we have it on as low as possibly can go. As you can see, it's not even simmering, it's just kind of holding its heat. So I'm gonna start adding butter. This is room temperature butter, where I can still hold it, but at the same time it's not cold. So I cubed it up and I've left it out at room temperature for a few hours. So as you can kind of see, I'm just adding it piece by piece. I know this seems intimidating, because it is, even for chefs at times, but I'm telling you, this is the easiest kind of beurre blanc you're gonna make, because it is quite stable. So I'm gonna keep adding butter here. Obviously, you've already learned that this isn't a health-conscious dish. I'm not saying butter's that bad. The rest of the dish is pretty decent, but the sauce is obviously rich, and it needs to be, because we really want to bring all these kind of flavors together. Slightly Mediterranean flavors. We're doing olives and garlic and arugula we're gonna be putting in there, some basil. All right. I don't want to overload it with too much butter at one time, because then we're going to take the temperature down, and we want to be able to make sure that we monte it or get enough butter in there that it's going to be a kind of thick, stabilized sauce. All right. I don't even need to keep it on there anymore, because it's got enough heat in there, and I don't want to risk kind of splitting it. As you can see, it's got enough heat in there that I can just kind of get the rest of the butter in here. I'm gonna add a tiny bit of salt. That, get my pan on. Okay. Okay, as you can kind of see, that it's got thick enough. I can even check it on the back of a spoon. It's a nice kind of sauce. All right, so we're gonna put that to the side, and now we're gonna get on our gnocchi and bring our dish together. Okay, so we have our pan here. Gonna get some oil in there. You wanna make sure the oil is shimmering, or as you can kind of see, it's moving around, because you don't want the gnocchi to stick. So we got our pan warm enough, and we're just gonna throw our gnocchi in there so they're not sticking. We're just probably gonna plate up one dish here, but obviously you can do multiple pans, or you can fill up the pan a bit more. I'm gonna throw the gnocchi in there. So we're gonna throw my asparagus in at this point, and a little knob of butter. This is just going to help it brown a bit. There we go. All right. Move this around a bit. So we could just use the gnocchi like this, because I mean, boiled gnocchi is delicious. You could just scoop it right out of the pot originally and just toss it with the ingredients, and it would be super delicious. I personally love to do a bit of both. So we're blanching it, then we're letting it cool down, so you know it's cooked really, really nicely. And then we're gonna put it into a pan like this, and gonna give it a little bit of a roast on the outside. It's almost like doing pierogies. You know, some people like them boiled, some people like them roasted. I like them done both ways. And I think it lends itself really well to this dish by having them roasted. and it adds a little bit of an extra kind of texture to it. As you can see, the asparagus, I'm not worrying about them too much. They are pretty much almost going to be cooked there. You can see they'll start to bend a little bit. That's all you really want with asparagus, because any vegetable or anything is going to continue cooking. So wherever you take it, it's going to cook for probably another 20%. So you got to keep that in mind whenever you're doing really anything like that, fish, meat, anything. So as you can see, got a nice little roast going. Then we are going to take, where's our chopped garlic? We have our olives. Gonna throw our olives in there. Gonna toss this all around together. Arugula, our semi-dried tomatoes. Arugula is going to give a nice little kind of bite to it, which I love. There we go. And then just give that a little toss. I'm just going to turn the heat right off because the arugula is in there. All you need to do is you have enough heat in the pan still. You don't even need to cook it any further. Okay, so tomato butter sauce on the plate. That. Now, our gnocchi, you can just dump it on there, or, you know, if you want to be nice and fancy with it, lift it on gently, making sure you're getting the asparagus, all those beautiful tomatoes. Now, since we had that basil, we have our basil oil here. As you can kind of see, nice and vibrant green. It's going to taste just like basil oil. I'm going to take a spoon of that. I'm going to pour it right in with the butter sauce. Right over top. And again, you can keep this, you can put this in the fridge, keep it for months. And one thing I love about that, like basil oil, having some vanilla ice cream, put a bit of basil oil on top, it's delicious. So we have that, and then we are going to finish with a little bit of Parmesan cheese on top. And there you have it. We have our ricotta gnocchi with our tomato butter sauce and semi-dried tomatoes. Hope you enjoyed this little demonstration and that you try this at home. Thanks.